There we go. Good. So we are on and we're streaming, and welcome to everybody for this Shabbat. And we're going to start up with Matovu on page 2, and everybody just join in with me. Page 2. Matovu Alecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu Alecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael. V'ani brov chasecha avo beitecha shechvecha kodshecha v'yiratecha. V'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chasecha aneni be'emet yishecha. Going to continue now. There's a prayer on the bottom of page 8. Elohai Shema, the soul which you gave me, it is pure. And I have this musical rendition, Kloipur Moradi, on violin and the accompaniment, a very beautiful rendition. We're going to run for about 4 minutes into it because it goes on longer. But okay, and that's it. Go ahead. And you can sing along. Is it tight?
Eloi
So the rest goes on. She has a medley, a musical medley like that. And then she ends up, repeats it with a Farsi translation also. So let me get her name correctly. It's a Chloe Pourmoradi Ensemble, if you ever want to look it up. Chloe Pourmoradi Ensemble. So the soul which you gave me is pure. And we continue page 10. I see Simon's online. I say also welcome guest, my neighbor. Good to see you. And we continue the morning blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sechvi nafchim ben yom uben laila. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani betzama. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam shasen Israel. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokech ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam mabish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zoket kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rok haaretz alamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasa li kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechi mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam ozeh sebegvura. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam otir sebetifara. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam hanoten layoif koach. And we continue page 54 with the opening to the psukim, verses of praise. And blessed be he who spoke and the world came into being. Baruch Shema v'yahaolam Baruch Hu. Baruch Omer v'yoseh, Oseh Bereshit, Baruch Omer v'yoseh, Baruch Baruch Merachem al haaretz, Baruch Merachem al briot, Baruch Merachem al briot, Baruch Mishlem schar tov, Elad v'kayam la'netzach, Baruch Bodem atzev, Baruch Shemo, Yochid, Chayei Olamim, Melech Mishpach, Fe'aret Shema Gadol, Baruch atah Adonai, Melech Mula Batishbachot. Okay, and we continue with the Ashrei, page 80. Page 80, and we're joining the opening together, and then silently. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yalu Chasela, Hashem Shekach Lo, Ashrei Am Sharanai Lahavti LaDavid. Amen. Hallelujah. And we continue the Hallelujah chorus, page 88. Let's join in. Hallelujah, 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 bekacho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, bekia uzo. Hallelujah, 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 big vorotav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, kerov gulo. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'teika shofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'neve v'chinor. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'tov u'machol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'minim ve'ugav. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'tzitzilei Shema. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'tzitzilei truah, kol hanshamati aleya, kol hanshamati aleya, kol hanshamati aleya, hallelujah.
Acknowledge that without charisma.
Hallelujah. And we're going to.
When he came here, we had 100 people. Now we have 8 people.
You got it? Okay. Okay. Here we go. Let's go ahead now. Page 336. 336. 336. Open the Shacharit proper with Shochenad. Join in with me. Shochenad maron bekadosh shemo bechatuv ranu tzadikim baronai laisharim lava tehila befi yisharim te'it halal ubdivrei tzadikim tebarach ubeshon chasidim tetromam ubekerev kedoshim te'it kahadash ubemakalot tivevot amcha beit Yisrael. שכן חובה יצורים לפניך אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפועל לרומם להלל לברך להלל לקלס הכל דברי שיר תשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך נשתבח שמך לעד מלכנו ברכות והודות מעתה ויד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלגדו בתשבחות, אל הודות אדון הנפלאות, הבוכה בשיר זמרה מלך, אלכי עולמים. Okay, we're going to go ahead on page 340 with the opening, the first benediction of the Shacharit, the blessing over the light and darkness. Baruch atah Adonai mecholam, yotzer or v'choshech, oseh shalom v'orei et hakol. Now we're going to go ahead to El Adon, and we're on page 342, and we have this rendition from Temple Heart Zion of El Adon in a multiple part harmony. And you can sing along. It's a very singable presentation. Musical Shabbat davening theme. Sing along. you. Members of Har Zion. Beautiful rendition and very singable version of the Erha. Page 344, we continue with the vision of the angels, the words of Ezekiel and Isaiah, giving their praise of God. Shem ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol ha'gibor ve'hanora kahadosh hu כולם מקבלים עליהם על מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם ונחת רוח בשר ונימה קדושה כולם כאחד רמירה קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות ארץ כבודו ואופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש קרוא מתנסים לעומת שרפים תם שבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני will cause a new light to shine upon Zion. May all delight in its splendor. And page 346, we continue. Ava Rabba Haftanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lagidol Avitera Hamad Aleinu Avinu Makenu Ba'avur Avotenu Shebatchu Becha Avinu Makenu V'telamdem Chukei Chaim Kein Techanenu Tlamdenu Avinu Ha'av HaRachamon Amrachem Rachem Aleinu V'teim B'libeinu Lehavin Lahaskil Lishma Limod Lilamed Lishma Velasot Olekayem Et Kol Divrei Talmud Toratecha B'Ahava V'ha'er Eineinu B'Toratecha V'dahabek Libeinu B'mitzvotecha V'yached Levaveinu Le'ahava U'lira Et Shemecha V'la nevosh le'olam va'ed V'la nevosh le'olam va'ed Ki v'shem ka'adshecha Agadol v'hanara batachnu Nagila v'nismecha Nagila v'nismecha b'shuatecha V'havienu l'shalom Arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemiut le'atzeinu K'epay Yeshua tatovanu v'chata mikolam v'lashon K'raftanu l'shimcha gadol Selah Selah be'emet Lehodot lecha u'yachedcha Ulyachedcha b'Ahava Baruch Atah Adonai Abuchei b'Amo Yiseh b'Ahava. And we continue page 346 together. We take the tzitzit in hand as we prepare for the Shema. Page 346. Join in. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Nevet. Together, v'ahavta et Adonai Lecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'ayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinamta ham levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lecha v'aderech v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshatam le'ot ayadecha ויהיו תותפות בין עיניך, וכתבת עמזות ביתך, ובישעריך. למען יבואו ימיכם וימי בניכם על אדמה אשר השפע אדוני לעבדיכם תיתם כימי השמיים הארץ. And we continue the bottom of page 348, we take the tzitzit. ויאמר אדוני משה דבר בני ישראל ואמרת להם ועשו להם ציצית Al kanfei bigdehem lidorotam v'natnu atzitzit. Akanaf betil techelet velechem letzitzit. Uritem otos chatem mikol mitzvot Adonai vasitem otam ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי נחם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם כל מצוותיי איתם קדושים לאליכם אני אדוני אליכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אליכם אמת לכם אמת ויציב ונכון וקיים ושב ונחמן. And we continue the bottom page 350. The praise the children of Israel gave as they saw the liberation from slavery at the shores of the Red Sea. נורתי לוט חושף אלה שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים לשמך אספת הים שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים לשמך אספת הים יחד כולם עודו יחד כולם עודו והמליכו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד To Yisrael, Kuma v'ezat Yisrael, Ovdei Mecha Yuda v'Yisrael. Lo aleinu Adonai tzevaot Shema, Kedosh Yisrael Baruch, Adonai Gaal Yisrael. Page 354. We rise for the opening of the Midah together, 354 and 356 together, then silently through 364, the Hebrew, the English, their own meditations. Adonai sifatai tiftachu pi yagid tilatecha baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu v'elei avotenu elei Abraham elei Yitzchak v'elei Yaakov ha'el hagadol hagibav hanora el elyon gomer chasadim tovim v'koneh hakol v'zocher chasdei avot v'yugel b'neihem l'man shemo b'ahava Melech Ozer Moshe Magen Baruch Adonai Magen Avraham Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechameti Matarav Lo Shia Tata Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayem Eitim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Meimit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua Ne'emanata Chayot Metim Baruch Adonai Mechayeh HaMeitim Nikar Shemcha B'Olam Keshem Shemakti Shemato B'Shmei Marom Katuv Hayad Nevi'echa Karza Zevi Amar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzevaot Mecharetz Kevodo Az B'Kol Rash Gadol Adi V'Chazak Mashmim Kol Mitnasim L'Umat Serafim Tam Baruchim Eru Baruch Adonai Mimekomo Omim Kamcha Malkeinu Tofia Imloch Aleinu Ki Mechakim Anachnu Lach Matai Timloch B'Tzion Kavim B'Tishkon Titgadal V'Titkahadash B'toch Yerushalayim Erha Ledor Vador Unetzach Netzachim Einenu Tirena Tirena Malchutecha Kadava Omu B'shirei Uzecha Ayde David Mashiach Kecha Yimloch Adonai Le'olam Elahayich Tzion Ledovador Hallelujah לדובדו נגיד גדלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש שבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש ושלום ועד כי מלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמח משה מלך. And we're going to go back now to Lidor Vador, page 356. This choral rendition is very interesting. It's in a Presbyterian church. I'm very happy to bring prayer selections when they're done in Christian churches, when they're not done trying to pass Christianity into a Jewish prayer. But when it's a Christian church, doing it because of a beautiful rendition and doing it because they believe it's beautiful to do it, then I appreciate it and I'm happy to have it. So this is a group in Northeast, let me get the name correct for them. Northwest Gill Choir Amore. That's the name. Okay, so we go ahead. And go ahead.
Oh
lovely rendition, lovely rendition. Beautiful choral group. And it's amazing what I've seen school choirs can do with languages that are not the language of the children, native language of the children. And the sounds come out very, very well. You know, whatever the language is. That's right. But it's beautiful to listen to them. Beverly Hills, they have a school choir there that had songs from all over the world. They sound like the native language. So now, Pirkei Avot, page 636. And a very problematic one, not because of the content, but because of who's saying it. So first I'll look at the content, then going into the question of who's saying this. Page 636, and we're looking at line 25. Elisha ben Abuya Omer says, Alamed Yeled Ma'udome Lidio Ktuva al Niar Chadash. When one learns as a child, it is as if one is writing on a fresh parchment. What does that mean? When you're writing on a fresh parchment paper or the parchment cloth is very clear. The ink sticks to it. It doesn't fall off. It's easy to read. Halamed Zaken, when you study as an old man, right? When you wait till you're getting old to study, Lamaudome, what's it similar to? Diok Tuva Ania Machuk. It's like writing on, uses the word paper, actually not parchment. When the paper has been reused and reused again and again, because paper is scarce or whatever you're going to use on, and it's blurry, the ink falls off, right? That's the problem with learning as we get older, right? Think of it, when we're kids, we want to learn a foreign language, it comes 1, 2, 3, 4. You hit 20, it gets more difficult. You hit our age, forget about it, right? We're not going to pick a set up a new language at this point, right? So what's the intention? Learn while you're young and fresh while the mind is fresh. That's very nice. Now the problem is, as I said, not what he said, but who is saying this? Elisha ben Abuya. Notice there's no title rabbi in front of him. This is one of the greatest teachers of Judaism. He was the teacher of Rabbi Meir, but they took away the title rabbi from him. Wonder why? Anybody familiar who is Elisha ben Abuya? He shouldn't be in here. Why did they quote him? Why did I say he shouldn't be in here? In the rest of the Talmud, in all sources, he is identified as Acher. He doesn't go by his name. Nobody writes his name. They just say Acher, the other one, or the changed one, the one who's different. What does it mean? Something happened to him and he became different. So who is this Elisha ben Abuya? And then why is he in here if something is wrong? So the story is Elisha ben Abuya, a great scholar, the teacher of Rabbi Meir, who is one of the great figures in the formation of Mishnah. And he's his teacher. And one day he looks at someone who is collecting eggs. And in the Torah it says that if you collect the egg and let the mother stay, you'll live a long life. So one guy collects the egg and holds the mother. Nothing happens to him. The other guy does exactly what's written, and he's bitten by a snake and dies. And he looks at him and says, Lidina, Lidaina. There is no law and there's no lawgiver, no judge. No judge, no justice, no judge. And he becomes an atheist, a disbeliever. Others think he becomes one of the members of one of the sects, Gnostic sects, that said that beyond God, as we know, there's a real God. So whatever the case may be, he becomes an example paradigm of the Epicurus, the disbeliever. Epicurus, from the Greek title Epicure, the Greek philosopher Epicurus, who said, if God is all powerful, then why is there evil? If God is all just, and so on goes, and he raises this same question, the very same issue, hence the word Epicurus. So my question is this: if that's the case, why did they include him in here? He turned against us. He could have become Buddhist, Hindu, whatever. He turned against us, become head of the Catholic Church, turned against us. Not Catholic Church yet at that time, but right? It just started. He turns against us. So they ask his student, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir keeps going back to him to study. Is Rabbi Meir, why are you still studying? In fact, no, the actual version is Rabbi Meir is chasing after him. And Elisha ben Abuya says, or Acher says, go away. You know that I don't believe any of this anymore. And he says, I know what to take from you and throw away what's useless. You know, the chaff from the wheat. I take the kernel from you. Don't worry, I know how to take out the things that you have wrong, but I know the things that you have right. So think of it. What does it tell us? We're getting into this age of cancellation. Everybody's canceling. You don't like something, somebody says you don't want to listen to anything. Somebody says something you don't like, doesn't mean that you have to discard everything. If somebody has turned opposite against you, there may still be things that you can pull out. Yeah. Huh? But that's what people are doing. I see this all the time. Facebook, Twitter, people doing this all the time. You're not my friend anymore. I didn't like this, you're not my friend anymore. You don't like driving. But he's saying intellectually, now, if it's your friends and you know that they're idiots, that's a different. I can't tell you who you pick for friends. But if it's somebody who has a track record, and this is happening in academics all the time, and it's also happening in medicine. So you have a track record, which is a reasonable, respectable track record. Suddenly it says something that's not acceptable. Boom, they drop like a hot potato. Then later on, they apologize. It's happening all the time. So we are, what have we done? Think of it. In general, Judaism is a religion of debate. We don't have to agree with everything. In fact, sometimes we say, we reject you, but there are points that we can understand. Spinoza walked away from the Jewish community. Does that mean we throw away Spinoza? No, it means that we take things from Spinoza that are valuable and we reject things that we don't agree. Freud, the great Freud, right? Very Jewish, he was very Jewish. Huh? I know, but that's what's happening. That's what's happening. So, I see it. I read academic debates. It's happening across the board. People are getting fired from positions. No. I see. No, but they don't. They don't. I look at what's being said. That's what's happening. But they're controlling. They're controlling and dictating. You have a silencing. It's going on in many academic circles. It's going on. Right. Not an insult. No, there's no insult. It's just, it's a line that doesn't follow what the others agree. And they jump on them before reading the comment even. I see this all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Right. But none of this is about hurting. All of these comments that are going on are not about hurting. And that's the problem. No, they're not about the dangerous comments. They're about things that don't toe the line. Somebody doesn't like one line or another. This is happening to Jewish academicians all over the place. Now, the minute you say something about Israel, if they're going back and they're being attacked and they're being kicked out of, that's an example. It's a very strong example. It's happening. It's happening very strongly. So, open debate. That's what we're going to get to. If the guy really lambasts a particular group, blows them up, verbally or something, I can listen. Yeah. What if it's not about stereotypes? See, that's the thing that's happening. And I'm going to take Israel as an example. Because that's in academic circles now. What is happening is the students are afraid to take courses in Israel because they're afraid the professors will cancel them. Because the professors have bought into the idea that Israel is an apartheid state. An example. And so they're cutting down, they're cutting back in the academic circles. You have lawsuits going on, City University of New York, big fights going on. So we're the canary in the cage. Hey, we're the canary in the cage. That's it. Okay. Now, since I said it, that's what I said. Nobody's allowed to disagree with me, and now we continue. That's academic. It's open-mindedness. Okay. Rabbi's privilege. I control the mic. All right. Page 20. Do we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Some online. So people are watching us online. Good. We'll go ahead with Kaddish, page 20. Go ahead. Yitkadal. Joe. If people online from us. Gadal Yitkadash Shema Rabba. Bi'ama Divra Chirutei V'amich Malchutei B'chayechon V'yomechon U'chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala V'zman Karib Imru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam U'lomei Maya Yiborach V'yishtabach V'yipoar V'yitromam V'yitnasei V'yithadar V'yit'aleh V'yithalal Shemei D'kudsha V'yichu Leila min kol bir chata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata damron b'yama b'imru amen al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al tamidei hon kol tamidei hon komando skim b'oraita di v'atra hadem v'di v'chol ata v'ata ye'el hon u'lechon shlom rabba china v'chista v'rachmin chayin arichin u'zona erviche v'kodem mikodem v'hon di b'shmaya b'imru amen yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya Chaim tovim aleinu v'akoyse b'imromein. Ose shalom b'imroma. Hu b'rachmei shalom aleinu v'akoyse b'imru. Amen. And we continue page. 394. Page 394. Let's chime in. Ein kamocha ve'elohim Adonai ve'ein k'masecha malchutcha malchut kol amim u'mishartecha b'chol dor v'ador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai varech et amo v'shalom avhar rachamim eitiva v'tzoncha et Zion Tibne chomot Yerushalayim, Tibne chomot Yerushalayim, Ki v'cha leva batachnu melech Eram v'nisa Adon olamim. Lehi ben Saron v'yomer Moshe Kuma Adonai v'yafutzu oivecha v'yanusu mesanecha mipanecha Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udevar Adonai mi Yerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'kedushato. Page 398. Be'ana rachetz ve'lishmei kadisha yakira ana amatush bechan be'ana rachetz ve'lishmei kadisha yakira ana amatush bechan yehirava Kadamach detiftach libi beoraita vetashli mishalin delibi veliba dechalamach Yisrael letavu chayin velishlam. Amen. You take out the Torah, repeat after me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadolul Adonai iti unerahom ema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedol v'hagevora v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki chov hashamayim uvaretz ki chov hashamayim uvaretz lecha Adonai hamamlecha v'mitnaseh l'chol rosh romemu romemu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu ladam raglav kadoshu romemu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu lahar kadosh ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Okay. Oh, we are at our Torah reading. Where's my chumash? You have a chumash there. You have another chumash. One more chumash. Have another chumash there. This one. Yeah, good. Okay. You have one there? Okay, all right. Let's have it up there. All right, so we're in the portion of Balak. So we are in the third of that portion. We're going to be starting page 673. 673, line 39. So it's a little bit tricky to find because there are not a lot of breaks in between. Yeah, so you have to find. But Balak starts itself on page 669. And so we're in the last third. The truth is we're reading more than the last third because they did want to get in the entire, when they did the division, to get the entire list of Balaam's prophecies. So who is Bilam? The tribes around the land of Israel see this wandering community, this big mob coming upon them. They're very much afraid. They've managed to beat their enemies in battle. And so they go to the most powerful. They see the warfare doesn't work against these people. So they go to the best bet, which is you go to a magician and or a priest of the pagans who is able to carry out incantations. Incantations is very important in the ancient Middle East. Even archaeologists constantly finding bowls with curses, and you take the bowl, you write a curse on it, you smash it, that destroys your enemy. In this case, he has his ksamim, he has his various divination tools, and he comes from the description, it would seem, from the east, Kedem, meaning Mesopotamia, where the Babylonians and the Syrians and all of the other peoples there specialize in controlling the universe through magic incantation. The Egyptians do it also because that's how you run, that's your chemistry of its day. That's as they understood it. So if you knew the right incantations, you could control the world.
Local people, they do also the sacrifices with an altar and opening an animal and seafood. Yeah.
He doesn't need to open the animals because you see, this is very important. What we're putting up here is someone who, while he's coming from the east, the land of incantation, you see that they come to him because they understand that he has a connection with God. So although he uses the same gimmicks and tricks, as you see from the text, God talks to him. Vayikar, they use that term Vayikar, God suddenly appears to him and says, you can do this, you can't do this. And then he goes, and we get to our part though, which is interesting because he says, okay, he tells the pagan, he says, listen, God won't let me say anything. He says, no, you know what? Go look at them. And when you look at them, then your power of cursing will come to you. So he looks at them, and instead of cursing them, he blesses them. So they say, okay, don't look at all of them, look at a part of them. And they keep on convincing, go again and again. And he says, okay, I'll look at a part of them, and again, he blesses them instead of cursing them. Finally, he says, go stand at a point where you don't look at them. And he blesses them instead of cursing. Finally, God says, look, stop this game, you know. And he comes back to him and says, look, truth is, give me all the money you want, all the bribes you want. I cannot change God's will. And then he gives his final blessing in this. So what's the point is that he, even as the pagan, is someone who understands God. And the rabbis teach from this, they come to the point that since God is talking to him, it is obvious that God can talk to any human being. It doesn't have to be Jewish. Question is, do you listen? So Bilam listens. Later on, he doesn't, because he convinces the Midianites the only way to get at the Jewish people is to make them stop being Jews. The minute they stop being Jews, they're no longer invincible. Right? The minute they move away from their belief, or being Israelites, their belief, yeah.
The Jews, after coming out of Egypt, evolved from the time they went to Egypt. And it seems that the incantations that Abraham was doing in their times somehow are not permissible now under the new. Yeah, but yes.
But the incantation forced the God. Here, there's no. So we have several famous lines. It says, famous lines in here, really. We start on page 23, which is where we're going to be going back to where we're starting. How can I curse? Ma'akov lo kavo el. How can I curse that which God does not curse? Right? And then, let me see, is that, yeah, that's the one. Several lines that very, very telling lines. Hen am levadad yishkon ubagoim lo yitchashev. There are people that dwell alone. They're not counted as among the regular nations. This is an odd people. It's a very telling phrase because, is it Bilam said it? Is it the Jewish people who write it? But as this is being said, they're very aware that things that happen to the children of Israel are not the things that happen to other nations. When you read the history of the children of Israel, you see wars going on like any other nation. You see fights going on like any other nation. You read the book of Kings. But then as you read it, you also discover from archaeology that much is not said. For example, in ancient archaeological records, the Babylonian records and so on, they talk about the house of Omri. Omri, the king of the north at one period. But the Bible dedicates only 1 or 2 lines to him. Turns out that he's one of the most powerful kings of his day. The Bible only tells a few. Why? Because it wasn't of interest to the biblical narrator. So as you look at the biblical account of history, you understand that what we're being told is that we have a process of up and down and up and down and up and down, and then very down, but then back up. And it is different from what is happening to other nations that come and go, come and go. So we're very aware already in the First Temple times that things that operate us, at least we're looking at it, are not the things that operate the other countries of the world. We are somehow outside of the normal history. And we're very sensitive to it. And certainly, if not in the First Temple times, when we have a regular country inside one land, by the time we come to the structure where we're now scattered, even while the Second Temple is standing, we're very aware of being different from the people we live among, different from, and very much aware of it. And the people that we live among are very much aware of it. down into modernity, where even as Jews assimilate, they're considered different. The only exception has been the United States, where Jews were considered Americans as Americans. But I had a teacher, a professor of Jewish studies from England, who told me, he said, in England, I'm a Jew of England. In the United States, I'm an American Jew. I'm a Jewish American, right? The difference of identity. In England, very much aware of this difference. In Europe, very much aware of this difference. What? I know. They didn't let Jews in large numbers, did they? Until after World War II. This country let Jews in before World War II. They stopped, but most of the Jews out of Russia got here 1880 to 1920. Then they got too many, but Canada never did that. Canada didn't do it. No, Canadian. There was under Canadian control. Until after World War II, they were embarrassed. They let some Jews in. They let Jews in after World War II. My cousins are in Canada, so it's they let Jews in after, out of embarrassment of World War. Then Canada opened up its borders, admitted more immigrants from other countries. I mean, once you let Jews in, you can let anybody in, right? That's it. You let one Jew in, you ruin the whole. There goes the whole neighborhood. There we go. So, but elsewhere, Mexico, Jews very sensitive about being Jews in Mexico, right? So that's one of the lines. I don't know, is that a blessing or a curse? We don't know that. We still know that. Yeah. But always sense of difference. So the Bible is very much attuned to it. Joseph is the Hebrew, even though he's the head of the Egyptians. They talk about Ha'ivri. In Pharaoh's house, in Potiphar's household, the wife says that Hebrew. And Hebrew coming from the word stranger, also ever, the other one. Yeah. Right. There was the foreigner, right. So, but the thing is, eventually people became assimilated. Past was forgotten. Jews maintained a separate culture. Jews were in Babylonia from 500 years before. You do DNA studies of Iraqi Jews, and their DNA is very different from their Arab neighbor next door. 2,500 years side by side, the Jews stayed close together, always sense of difference. Even the Arabic that the Jews spoke was different from the neighbor's Arabic, because it was an older Arabic they kept, right? So what other things in here? It's not they had no contact, they had contact, but they were given autonomy. They had autonomy, they had semi-political independence, they had a semi-political leader, Rosh Galuta, only for business. Only for business, not for socialization. All right? Okay. All right, and you're always that's a fiddler on the roof thing, right? That's your existence. Fiddler on the roof, right? And which is separate from the Egyptians. It's the northern part that is closest to the land of, and we know it's mostly Semitic herders who are settling in that area. So they're always aware of being distinct, right? Some distinction. Again, it's hard to tell the historicity, but certainly by the time we are getting into while the first temple still stands, there's a Jewish colony at the border of Egypt to the Nubian desert. And we know that. We have the remains. It's on the Nile River, a Jewish fort. They were brought in as mercenaries. Now, they're not exactly kosher Jews. because they have a temple of their own. They happen to have a woman next to God. Okay, so they're influenced. The first case of anti-Semitic outbreaks recorded in history are attacking the Jews that are settling there. In settling there, it's the border. It's on the Nile as you go down the Nile, the border with the Nubian peoples. Right? It's a Jewish colony. They're there to defend it, but they're there with other. There's a resentment against them. Right? So there's something very interesting. What other things? The famous line, "Kilo nachash b'Yaakov," right? Why can't Bilam get it going? Kilo nachash b'Yaakov lo kesem b'Yisrael. There is no nachash. Nachash meaning the incantation, whispering of the words. It's similar to the word snake, because a snake hisses. So hence you have the nachash, meaning lilchosh, to whisper. So nachash, the incantation. B'Yaakov lo kesem b'Yisrael. Kesem, the tools of magic. Doesn't work on Israel. It may work on everybody else. Doesn't work on the children of Israel, right? And then you have another line. Where is it? It's the line that was first used for the first message on the telegraph. Ma pa'al el. What hath God wrought? That's the line that was used for sending the first message from NYU to Washington, D.C. Did you know that one? The first telegraph was set up at NYU. Morris. And he brought somebody in to send the first message, and it was that line, for what has God wrought? Right, the miracle of telegraph. And what else? The Jew as a very powerful figure, and somebody you want to be careful of. Hen am kilavi yakum. They will arise as a female lion, a lioness. Vikari it naseh, and as the male lion will rise above. And lo yishkav ad yochal teref. He will not be quiet till he eats his meal. The dam chalim yishteh, drinks the blood of the victims. Not a very nice line, because that becomes the kind of line then that is used against Jews, the danger of the Jews, right? So, but these are finally, then he turns against the other nations and he warns them. He says, you are going to get it. That's the end of his prophecy. That's the end of his line, right? And then what happens after this beautiful praise? The very last paragraph is how the children of Israel are laid low by women. Blame the woman, right? They give in to the beautiful wives. They figure they can't beat them by cursing them. You can't beat them by fighting them. The only way you can beat them is by making them abandon their Judaism. And so how do you get that? You get the nice woman, the guy goes for her, and everything goes downhill all of a sudden, right? That's where we come into the plague. Yeah, no, but it's not that they captured the women. It's not, in this case, they didn't capture them. It's the women are coming in. They're tools. They're being used as tools. That's the way it's interpreted. The women are coming into them, bringing the Midianite women as tools to get them to abandon the Jews. Well, okay, that's a difficult story. Yeah. The Levites, Pinchas ben Eleazar, right? Because he's violent. And so we get into the question next week, what happens to the image of the Levites after that? And that's next week's portion. Okay, so it's very hard to find.
Very hard to find.
Because first words. If they would have written the sentence the other way around, they would have been in front. You always take the first word. Vayar Balak. So since we already had Vayar or Vayera, we can't do that again. So we go Balak next word. That's how we go. Yeah. There we go. So, but we're continuing. Yeah. So now we. Keep on going this way and this way. Okay, now. Okay, and now we're keep on going back this way. No, the other way. The other way.
You guys.
That's the donkey. Yeah, we finished with the donkey. Okay, hold on. Here we go. I'm right here at this line. Oh, young fellow.
Yeah.
He's a neighbor. Go ahead. So it's verses.
I don't know. I have a walk.
Baruch Adonai, Baruch Adonai.
I work on and I have a rather long by it. I work out tired and I are healing America along myself. I have banu miko harami, but Talano it toward talk. I work out tired and I no tain ho to.
Amen. 39 through the next page. 20 verse 5. וילך בלעם עם בלק ויבוא קריאת חוצות ויזבח בלק בקר בצאן וישלח לבלעם לשרים אשר איתו ויהי בקר ויקח בלק את בלעם וילך במות בעל וירא משה קצה העם ויאמר בלעם אל בלק בנה לי בזה 7 מזבחות כן לי בזה 7 פרים 7 עילים ויעש בלק אשר דיבר בלעם ויעל בלק בלעם והיה במזבח ויאמר בלעם לבלק התייצב על עולתך והלך ואולי יקרא אדוני לקראתי דבר מה יראני והגדתי לך וילך שבתי ויקרא אלוהים אל בלעם ויאמר אליו את 7 המזבחות ערכתי ועל פר והיה במזבח וישם אדוני לדבר בפי ובלעם יאמר שוב אל בלק כה תדבר.
I work out tired and I are healing America along. Kashan not to line to emet. Bahaye olam. Not tain you, but work out tired and I no tain her to.
Amen. To line 12, which is the next page, 674 to 675, verses 13 through. Verses 6 through 12. 6 through 12. Okay. Yamod, Yudunach ben David Shar Levi.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המלך העולם אשר ברבנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו אסתרוסוי. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Okay. וישב אליו והנה ניצב על עלתו והוא וכל שרי מואב וישם אשר לו ויאמר מן ארם ינחנו בלק מלך מואב מהרי קדם לך ארע לי יעקב ולך זעמה ישם מה אקו לא קבע אל ומה זעם לא זעם אדוני כי מרצים אראנו בגבעות אשר הן עם לבדד ישכון ובגויים לא יתחשב מי מנע עפר יעקב ומספר את רבע ישראל תמות נפשי מות ישרים תאחריתי כמוהו. ויאמר בלק אל בלעם מה עשית תלקח אויבי לקחתיך והנה ברכת ברך. ויאמר ויען ויאמר הלא את אשר ישים אדוני בפי אותו אשמור לדבר.
ברוך אדוני מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת חי אמנת בספנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Verses 13 through 26. Yeah.
ברוך הוא את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. ויאמר עליו בלק לך נא איתי אל מקום אחר אשר תראו משם אפס כסהו ותראו כולו תראה וכוונו לי משם ויקחל שדה צופים אל ראש הפסגה ובין 7 מזבחות ועל פרבעי המזבח ויאמר אל בלק התייצב כה אנו אותך ואנוכי אקרא כה ויקרא אדוני אל בלעם וישם דבר בפיו ויאמר שוב אל בלק כה תדבר ויבוא אליו והנה ניצב על עולתו ושרי מואב איתו ויאמר לו בלק מה דבר אדוני וישא משלו ויאמר קום בלק וישמע האזינה עדי בני ציפור לא איש אל ויחשף ובן אדם ויתנחם הוא אמר לא יעשה ודבר לא יקימנו דבר לא יקימנו הנה ברך לקחתי וברך לא אשיבנה לא תביט עוון ביעקב ולא ראה עמל בישראל אדוני אלוהיו עמו תרועת מלך בו אל מוציאם ממצרים כתועפות רעים לו כי לא נחש ביעקב ולא קסם בישראל כעת יאמר ליעקב ולישראל מה פעל אל הן עם כלביא יקום כרעי יתנשא לא ישכב עד יאכל טרף ודם חלים ישתה ויאמר בלק אל בלעם גם קוב לא תקבנו גם ברך לא תברכנו ויען בלעם ויאמר אל בלק הלא דיברתי אליך לאמור כל אשר דיבר אדוני איתי אעשה אותו אעשה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת והעולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
26.
Yeah, my son moved this.
Yeah.
Your Hebrew name.
יעמוד
Eli ben your father.
father.
Mayor.
Eli ben Meir. Okay. So Yamod, Eli ben Meir. This is the Revi'i,
Which page?
27. So we're starting page 677, verse 27, over to the end of that section. Okay. Go ahead. For who?
Who?
Ed. Adonai.
Adonai.
Hamavorach.
Hamavarach.
Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Hamavarach. L'olam Mayor.
Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam asher banu mikol hamim v'nanu Torah. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Amen. ויאמר בלק אל בלעם לך נא אקחה אל מקום אחר אולי ישב בעיני האלוהים וקראתו לי משם ויקח בלק אל בלעם בראש הפרעה ונשכב על פני שמעון ויאמר בלעם אל בלק בנה לי בזה 7 מזבחות הכן לי בזה 7 פרים ו7 עילים ויעש בלק אשר אמר בלעם ועל פר ועיל במזבח. Okay, good.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam asher nanu Torah emes v'chai olam natan v'lacheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Okay, here she goes. What's your first name?
Eli.
And the last name Fatal, right?
Correct.
Right. This is Eli Fatal, and he's a neighbor in the area. Got this here. Good. Stand over here. You're fine. Good. Yeah. Okay. Go over that side here and just stand over there. Yeah. And then Rachel will come up. We have to have room for Rachel also. There we go. Good. There we go. So we're continuing now. Chapter 24, 1 through 13. Okay.
ויעמדו
רחל בת שמואל.
בת שמואל.
Shmuel, this is number, we're on number 5, right? Hamishi. Yeah, we're Hamishi, so then 14 through 20, up to 14. What's the last one? No, we're doing 14 through 25, so it's the 6. Where are we on 1 through 13? Wait a minute, I'm jumping. Yeah, 1 through 13. Okay. Yeah, till. Okay. Okay, there we go. Bilam Kito Ben Adonai Lebrechet Yisrael.
She didn't do the
Okay.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Let me just check what it's going to be. ויעבילם כי טוב בעיני אדוני לברך את יוסף ולא הלך כפעם בפעם לקראת נחשים בישת על מדבר פניו ויישא בלעם את עיניו וירא את ישראל שכן לשבט ותהיה עליו רוח אלוהים ויישא משלו ויאמר נאום בלעם בני באור נאום הגבר שתום העין נאום שמע אמרי אשר מחזה שדי ויחזה נפל גלוי עיניים מה טובו אוהליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל כנחלים נטוי כגנות עלי נהר כעלים נטע ארוני כארזים עלי מים יזול מים מדליו וזרעו במים רבים ומאגג מלכו ותנשא מלכותו על מוצאו ממצרים כתופות רעים לא יאכל גויים צרה וצביעותם עצמותיהם יגרום בחציו ממחץ קרע שכב קרי כלבי מי יקימנו מברכך ברוך ברך ארור ויחר אף בלק אל בלעם ויספק כפה בימה בלק אל בלעם לקרוב אויבי קראתיך והנה ברכת ברך זה 3 פעמים ואתה ברכת לך אל מקומך אמרתי כבד אכבדך והנה מנעך אדוני מכבוד ויאמר בלעם אל בלק הלא גם אל מלאכיו אשר שלחת אלי דיברתי לאמור אם ניתן לי בלק מלוא בית כסף וזהב לא אוכל לעבור את פי אדוני לעשות טובה או רעה מליבי אשר ידבר אדוני איתו אדבר. That's it, yeah. אדבר.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחי אלוהים נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. So this also has, okay. This also has one of the famous lines. We start the service, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, when you walk into a synagogue. The word, oh, how good are your tents, because he's seeing the encampment. So tents literally, Mishkenotecha, and your dwelling places. So ohel is used as a figurative term in rabbinic speech for the synagogue, this house of study, the ohel, meaning a building over your head, not necessarily just canvas or goat skins. But also ohel, if you know Arabic, ahal is a people. So it comes from the word ahal, meaning family. So we read it as also ohalecha, your families, how good are your families? So ask the question, what do you mean, how good are your families? What does he see? And he says, well, they have, everybody's tent is pitched so that nobody's peeking in on their neighbors. Privacy of the husband and wife is privacy. Your business is not looking in on them, right? The sanctity of the family. That the rabbi says another interpretation of it. So continue page 679 verses 14 through 25.
I have a question. Here they mentioned the Moabites.
Yeah.
The Moabites were kind of cousins.
Yeah.
So they were not supposed to attack them.
Not good cousins, but cousins.
Not good cousins, but the Israelis were not supposed to go against them.
Yeah. There's constant warfare between Judah and the Moabites,
And
constant. Yeah.
This seems so.
Yeah, and we have the king of the Moabites wrote his a monument to one of his wars. In our text, it's we won, in his text, he won. So we know they're constantly warfare with each other. Not a good relationship.
And
Kissing
also-
cousins. That's why Ruth is a Moabite.
Yeah. And the
Right.
Canaanites also were mentioned here. No?
Right. And the Canaanites are related in some way to the Ishmaelites and the Midianites. So at this point, somewhere, this is reflecting some actual wars going on. That's what they're reflecting. Yeah. So let's go ahead.
Your name?
Abraham Benjamin. Baruch Hu es Adonai V'Barach.
Baruch Hu
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'notanu torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
אמן. ואתה הנה הולך לעמי לך ארצך אשר יעשה העם הזה לעמך באחרית הימים וישם השלום עמך נאום בלעם בנו באור נאום הגבר שתום העין נאום שמע אמרה וידע דעת עליון מחזה שדי יחזה ונפל גלוי עיניים וראינו ולא אתה אשורנו ולא קרוב דרך כוכב ויעקב וקם שבט מישראל מחץ פאתי מואב וקרקעות כל בני שת והיה אח אדום ירשה והיה ירשה שעיר אויביו וירא ישראל עתה עשה חיל וירד מיעקב ויהבית שריד מעיר וירא את עמלק וישם משלו מראשית גויים עמלק ואחריתו עדי אבות ירא את הקני וישם משלו ממך איתן משה וחבשים בסלע כנחקי אם יהיה לבאר כן עד מה אשור לשבחה וישם משלו ויאמר אוי מי יחיה משמו ויוצאים מיד כיתים ואנו אשור ואנו וגם הוא עדי עבד ויקם בלעם וילך וישב למקומו וגם בלק הלך לדרכו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah shemesh b'parai olam nota b'tzachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. 777. Give me Jenny. Jenny, we have a job for you. Come. Okay, just that. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, take it till we touch it to the spot here. Give a kiss on the
Baruch Hu es Adonai Ham Shorah.
Baruch na.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natanu toraso. Baruch atah Adonai nosai torah.
וישב ישראל בשיטים ויכל העם לזנות אל בנות מואב ותקרן לעם לזבחי אליהם ויכל העם וישתחוו לאליהם ויצמד ישראל בבעל פאור ויחר ארונה בישראל ויאמר אדוני אל משה קח את כל ראשי העם הוכה אותם לאדוני נגד השמש וייסע וישב חרון אף אדוני מישראל ויאמר משה אל שופטי ישראל הרגו איש אנשיו הנצמדים לבעל פאור והנה איש מבני ישראל בא קרב אל אחיו את המדיינית לעיני משה לעיני כל עדת בני ישראל בהמה בוכים פתח אוהל מועד והפנחס בן אלעזר בן אהרון הכהן ויקם מתוך העדה ויקח רמח בידו ויבוא אחר ויאחר איש ישראל אל הקובה וידקור את שניהם איש יסער ואת האישה, עקובתה ותעצה מגפה מעל בני ישראל ויחיו, המתים במגפה 24,000. ברוך. Yeah,
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתנו לנו תורס, אמס וחיינו, חלום נוטה ופשענו. ברוך אתה אדוני נתנו חדרה.
Amen. Maftir. We'll listen to the blessing for those who are ill. And we'll cover the Torah. Let's join in. Let's bring it up on the screen. Put the cover here, Joe. The cover for the Torah. Yeah, just put it on. Yeah. Okay. And we should go. There it is. Okay, go ahead, put up the Mishaberach list here for us. Okay. The list for the Mishaberach. Yeah, Mishaberach. Okay, so Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarif Karachev Leah Vivarech V'Rapeh Cholim. The Holy One who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal Jeffrey Buck, Eileen Zadok, David Slachter, and Joe Alexander, Moise Kelchik, Ronnie Duran, Esther Sheva, Harriet Levins, Moise Ben Mania, Barbara Mormon, Judy Alkali, Richard Zeller, Judy Smith, Samuel Smith, Douglas Workman, Esther Gerson, Arthur Banatek, Roger Rosen, Robert Dropter, Rachel Flalo, Susan Tuckman, Inga Bus, John Deborah Robin, Rose Helene Bat Rivka, Hannah Bat Chaya, Marvin Katz, Andrea Vasilev, Leah Dorf, Mike Dorf, Liba Bat Sarah, Herb Mormon, Hannah Sarah, Leah Bat Rachel, Hannah Sarah Bat Kayla Alta, Sophie, the friend of Judy Alkali, Hannah Bat Sarah, Irina Osepian, Alan Whalen, Lava Masha Ben Sarah, Jennifer Fraser, Liao Ben Hannah, Shoshana Bat Sarah, Lai Bruchim, Louis Jason, all those who have been affected by COVID-19 virus and wars worldwide, and all those who are injured by gun violence in our country. Barbara Drato, she wasn't on the list. She'll have it on the list on a regular basis. And please add any other names.
Shlomo ben Moshe Wolf,
Shlomo ben Moshe Wolf,
Sima Halev,
Sima Halev, Ronan
Halev,
Tarlev, Susan Feinberg, Shan Lippman,
Esther Rachel
Esther
Batsiva,
Shabbat
Laban Moshe
Moshe
Batsara,
Basara,
and
Helen Flax, and Ronald Rothman, Judy Bremen, Carol and Julian Eisner, and Rachel Bat Ventur, Mazal Bat Rivka, and David Atchison. Any other names of people who are ill? And we pray for all of them. May the Holy One send them healing both in body and in mind to them, to the whole house of Israel, to all who are ill. May Amen, speedily and quickly, and let's all say Amen. And let's join in the Mishaberach chanted together. Put it up on the screen for us all, and we join in. Mishaberach Avotenu, Mikol habracha limotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu, Mikol habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Amen. And I guess Amen. Mechayechanu v'yamechon u'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala, ba'agala, ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. אשמרה במברך, ועולם לא מעלמיה יפרח.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל
שמי לקודשא בריחו.
נעלם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה.
תושבחתה ונחמתה, להמירם בעמה במהרו, אמן.
יעמוד הרב נחמן בן הרב זאב מפטור.
Continue verses 7, 7 to the end of that portion, 7 to 9. First page 681. Baruch hu et Adonai Baruch. Baruch ne Baruch ne Baruch et Adonai b'cholam asher b'chabanu mikol amim v'natan lanu et torato Baruch et Adonai noten Torah. ויער פנחס בן אלעזר בן אהרון הכהן ויקם מתוך העדה ויקח רומח בידו ויבוא אחרי איש ישראל אל הקובה וידקור את שניהם את איש ישראל ואת האישה את קובתה ותצא המגפה מעל בני ישראל ויהיו מתים במגפה 24,000. ברוך אתה למחלם אשר נתן לנו תורה באמת וחברת תוכנו, ברוך אתה לנותן התורה. Please rise. Strong arms. Okay. Okay. Bezot HaTorah she'asa Moshe לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, תומכי המאושר. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכי המאושר. דרכיה דרכי נועם, בכל נתיבותיה שלום. דרכיה דרכי נועם, בכל נתיבותיה שלום. די 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 Okay, Haftarah, page 682, taken from the prophet Micah in English, and it reflects on the story of Bilam, because he talks about the children of Israel complaining about religion is too difficult, and he says, how did I make it difficult for you? Look how I took you out of Egypt and brought you across the desert. Remember Moses and Aaron, and then remember what the king Balak planned and what Bilam answered. And this is referring to the blessings. Balak planned to curse the children of Israel. Bilam came and blessed them, right? And so he's repeating to an audience in his day that are aware of this, very aware of this tradition of Bilam, the prophet coming and blessing, or the pagan blessing the children of Israel. But most important, this line, what does God want? He says, into page 684, does God want thousands of rams as an offering or a flow of olive oil? Then, very, very difficult line. Am I to offer my firstborn for forgiveness? No, which indicates that possibly in his time, the children of Israel have been influenced. This is in the time of King Manasseh, they think, who adopted the Syrian religion, strengthened his alliance with Assyria, and quite possible that had come back in. So we have references to the story of Lot should not pass your son through fire. to Moloch, right? The Torah mentions it. That very possibly that was being done. And he says, no. He's telling us, no, it's impossible. Hayten chatat b'ni, my pre-bechori. And then he says, what? He gave l'cha adam matov. Yeah, we tell you, I tell you, it's been told to you. Matov u'ma. What is truly good? What does God want? Ki'im asot mishpat, to do justice. Avat chesed, carry acts of love. Love chesed, love, actually, love. V'atznei alechet im Elohecha, and walk humbly in the presence of your God. Don't be stuck up, don't be stuck. Walk in the presence of God. Walk with an attitude of piety, presence of God. Those are the three things that we want. Not the big sacrifice. Sacrifices are nice, but without this, it's meaningless. So that's from the words of Prophet Micha. Page 682. Yeah. All the prophets have a lot of words to talk about the wealthy landowners or the wealthy nobility whose wives want the luxury, and so they're more engaged in oppressing the people to get the money squeeze money out of the people to get the luxury. Right, and that's your urban dwellers, right? The elites. That's what he's knocking down. Yeah, okay. Huh? Yeah, wealth is right. Right. Some of that the wealth becomes concentrated in those cities. Yeah, you own the lands outside, but you live in the city for the comforts of the city. Let's go ahead then. Here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'neviim tovim tzava d'ivreihem hane'emorim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'amo v'yisrael b'Torah b'Torah Moshe avdo v'yisrael amo b'emet v'tzedek. Vayasherit Yaakov b'kerev amim rabim ketal me'at Adonai keruvim ale esev asher lo yekaveh ish v'lo yechal b'nei adam. Vayasherit Yaakov goyim b'kerev amim rabim karyeh b'behemot ya'ar kekfir be'edrei tzon asher im avar v'ramas v'taraf ein motzi. I'm going to continue down the last paragraph. Shimu na et asher Adonai omer kum riv et harim v'tishma negivot kol chashim u harim et riv Adonai ve'itanim mosdei aretz ki riv Adonai im amo v'im Yisrael yitvakach ami ma asiti lecha u'ma haleticha ein anebi ki heleticha me'eretz Mitzrayim u'beit avadim pediticha v'shlach lefanech et Moshe Aaron Miriam im ami zechona me'atz Balak melech Moab ma'ana oto bil'am ben be'or min hashitim עד הגיגל למען דעת צדקות אדוני, במה אקדם אדוני, עקף לאלוהי מרום, וקדמנו בעולות, בעגלים בני שנה, היצא אדוני באלפי אלים כרבבות, על נחלי שמן, היתן בכורי פשעי, פרי בטני חטאת נפשי. הגיד לך אדם מה טוב, ומה אדוני דורש ממך, כי אם עשות משפט ועבד חסד וצנע לכת, עם אלוהיך. ברוך אתה למחלום, So Kolamim Tzadik B'Chorot Haylan Ne'emon Halmeh B'Yoseh Hamadavim Kaim Shekol Devara B'Emet V'Tzedek Ne'emon Ato Nehenu V'Ne'emonim Devarecha V'Devarechod Midvarecha Achol Lo Yoshuv Rekam Ki Melech Ne'emon V'Rachaman Ata Baruch Hataranai V'Ne'emon B'Chol Devarav Achem Al Tzion Ki Hivei Chayenu Lalu Bat Nefesh Toshia B'Mera B'Yameinu Baruch Hataranai Semech Tzion B'Vaneha Sam Chaynu Adonai Lehenu B'Elion B'Yavdecha Machut Beit David Mishecha Erha yava v'yagel ben akis lo yishev zal lo yicholot kibolo ki v'shem kachach nishbat lo shlo ben olam b'ed baruch ataronai magen David al Torah ve'al avoda ve'al neviim ve'yam Shabbat hazeh shena tatlanu Eloheinu lekdusha v'lemenucha lechavod u'tifaret al hakod Eloheinu anach modem lach mevarchim otach yibarech shemcha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam b'ed baruch ataronai mikadesh hashabahat. Amen. Okay. And now we go ahead for the United States and for Israel. It's been a very significant week because we had President Biden visiting Israel, meeting with the head of the Palestinian Authority, and now meeting in Riyadh with the MBS, and the famous fist bump with MBS, and everybody's upset because of that. But what we have is very important statements from Biden. Number one, he says, I'm a Zionist. Number two, I feel at home. And then number three, signing the security agreement, letter of agreement called the Jerusalem Statement about the common interests and security between the United States and Israel. Very important, very significant. And President Biden turning against the squad and those wings in the Democratic Party that want to blacklist Israel as apartheid state. Very important statement. And then going to the Palestinian Authority saying, yeah, two states, but we're not ready for it. And you're going to have to wait. So they burned him in effigy. And then Saudi Arabia, we know because we need oil. But a major point is made, which is the United States, as he said, is not leaving the Middle East. We've had a push since President Obama and then President Trump continued it. And to some extent, the administration was getting in that direction, which is Middle East is no longer the major concern. The oil is less of a concern. Let the Russians mess it up. Let the Iranians mess it up. It's less of our concern. Now with the sensitivity to oil and the problem of Iran front and center, and the problem with Russia front and center, the recognition we can no longer be out of the Middle East. We can't afford it. And so in the long run, I hope that plays also for the United States' interests and for Israel. So with that, I'm going to do thanks to both countries, praise to both countries. Prayer for the United States, we're going to go to Ray Charles. This is after 9/11. So beautiful rendition. Can you find it there? There we go. The first Ray Charles. There we go. There. And you can move forward just a little bit because you have this introduction. We don't need to do the whole introduction. When you see him sitting down at the piano,
Honor America.
go forward a little bit.
With the singing of America the Beautiful.
There we go. Yeah.
Please welcome the man and his soul, Mr. Ray Charles.
Liberating strife, who more than self their country love, and mercy morning light. What I'm saying about the land, this America, sweet America, may God thy glorified, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. And you know, when I was a little boy, I remember we always sang these words. Oh, beautiful, far spacious sky, far amber waves of grain, far purple mountain majesty. Above a minute. America, America. God, shed his grace on thee. God, I love him for the yeah. He crowned our good. I don't you remember? Say me brotherhood from sea to shining sea. You know, I wish I had y'all to help me sing this thing here. Go ahead. America. Oh, yes, he did. You ought to love him for it, 'cause he cried out good. He told me what? Say me brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Lord, let Jesus light down. I'm gonna thank you, Lord. Let me thank you, Lord.
Okay, and the next, the prayer for Israel.
אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן, הגן עליה, בעברת, בעברת חסדך, ופרוס עליה, עליה, סוכת, סוכת שלומך, ושלח עצה טובה מלפניך. אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל גואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Avinu שבשמיים, deliver them from their efforts with triumph. Avinu שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. Bless the land with peace, O God, and all its people
And so blessings for the United States and for the people of Israel, and for the people of the Middle East, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Arabs, Israelis, Palestinians, all peoples. I come to word of blessing. And we'll throw in the Ukrainians also for this as well, and the Europeans, and also for the Russians, that they find peace. Continue now with the return to Torah, to the Ark. Okay, his eyes. Okay, so we have a nice crowd on Facebook following us. Look at my notes. Okay, page 122. 122. Hallelujah, Shema Adonai, Kiniskav Shema Levado, Odo al Eretz v'shamayim, Vayarem keren le'amo, Tehila lecho chasidav, Livnei Yisrael, Am kerovo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Mizmor LeDavid, Havul Adonai b'nei Elim, Havul Adonai kavod va'oz, Havul Adonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu Adonai behadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai shaber arzim, Shaber Adonai taze avanon. Kenem kum egem sevion kmo ben remim. Kol Adonai chotzev lavodesh. Kol Adonai yachim midbar. Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yacholel hayalot. Yachasof yoret. Echal kulo omer kavod Adonai lamabul. Yashav vayeshev Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oz le'amo yitein. Adonai varech et amo v'shalom. And page 426. Eitz chaim hi. Eitz chaim hi. Lema chazikim ba. V'tom cheha me'usha. Deracheha darchei noam. V'chol netivoteha shalom. Ashihi v'heinu Adonai, Ehelecha v'nashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu kekedem. Please be seated. We continue with Enke Eloheinu. Today I'm going to proceed. We're going to sing ourselves. We're going to do some more singing, group singing. Give credit to Simon, his idea. Let's get some group singing, sing along. So we're going to do Enke Eloheinu Aleinu, the Kaddish. I'll give my little talk. I'm going to try to keep it time-wise short. And then I've got two songs we're going to try to teach. So we're going to try and wrap that up, make it a musical ending to our service. Page 508, let's all join the Enke Eloheinu together. Enke Eloheinu. Ein kadonenu, ein kemalkeinu, ein kemoshienu, mich Eloheinu, mich adonenu, mich kemalkeinu, mich moshienu, nodel Eloheinu, nodel adonenu, nodel malkeinu, nodel moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Atahu Shektiru, Avotenu, Lepanecha Eketoret Asamim. Please rise. Continue with Aleinu. Open the ark, please. Page 510. Aleinu l'shabech ladon hakol, l'tekru liyotzei breshit, shelo asanu kiyeh haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachat adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim, u'modim, לפני מלך, מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שנותן שמיים ויוסר ארץ, מה וקרא בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו, b'gavei meromim, u'Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes ulato, kakatu b'torato, yadata yom ve'ashivota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim mimal, v'al haaretz mitachatenu. Ne'ema v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Come now, please close the argument, be seated. We recall now those loved ones who passed away this year. Yes, it's Irma Smith, Miriam Bodei, Erna Nissan, Blaine Goldsmith, Shirley Marco, and this is the site of loved ones here, Grigory Weinstein and Celia Weinstein and Genya Schinder. May their memories be for a blessing. Those who are reciting the Monas Kaddish, please recite the Kaddish with me. Page 512, page 512. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba. V'yamad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei chayechon v'yamechon v'chayedechol Beit Yisrael b'agalav izman kari v'imramein Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'elam l'mei maya yiborach v'yishtabach v'yipoar v'yituman v'yitnasei yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei kutsha berichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata Tush b'chata v'nechmata damram b'yamav v'yamain Yesh Shlomo Rabba min Shemai b'chayim aleinu v'akoyser v'yamain Ose shalom b'imramav uyaseh shalom aleinu v'akoyser v'imru. Amen. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Luckily, these sing-alongs, I found a section where I've got music singing the sing-along parts for me. So if my voice goes out, I don't have to worry. But first, my little talk. So am I a co-host? Yeah. Yeah. Transliteration. Okay, this one, I've got it on the screen. I'm going to enlarge it so that it'll be easy to read. I found something that should save the day for us. Okay, so now, that's my little topic discussion. We'll go into the idea of the infinite one, and since infinite is endless, I'm not going to talk endlessly. I will keep it within a normal amount, and if I see this going long, I'll just split it into next week. But we've been talking about 3 pillars of Judaism. So I started with the people, and then go to our way of studying and learning Torah, and now finally to what do we believe, which would be centered around God. And that's the only, at this point, we can actually go to that question to get to what are we about. And we are looking at a God who asks questions, right? When he introduces, when he talks to the human being, mentioned it last week, this is a God who asks questions. Ayeka, where are you? Where are you? And my teacher, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, said, it's interesting. Judaism doesn't care what we believe about God. It is very worried about what God believes about human beings. That's the point. So what can we talk about? We have to recognize this. Religion in Jewish thought did not begin with Moses and did not begin even with Abraham, right? Not even with right? It's we go back to Hanoch. Hanoch is one of the descendants of Adam before the time of Noah, who's described as V'yitalech Hanoch et Elohim. Noach is walking in the presence of God or with God. So, and then he is taken up to heavens rather than dying, right? So there's a whole bunch of traditions about who is Hanoch, what does it really symbolize, but here's a human being before the time of Noah who is walking the path of God. And also in rabbinic tradition, Noach, the sons of Noach are rabbis. Who is that? Shem and Ever. Shem, from which we get the word Semites, right? Of the 3 sons of Noah, has oil Shem. He has an academy, according to the rabbis. An academy studying Torah. Before there's a Torah, before they're Jews, before they're Hebrews, before Abraham. And Ever, from which we get the word Hebrew, right? From whom Abraham is descended. Also, Oel Ever, right? Academy of Ever. Again, ancestors of Abraham. So why are the rabbis saying this? The idea is that religion is not something exclusively for the Jewish people. It's not something that only Jews have. We have our particular way, but it's something that all humanity has. We share. So if anything, today's Torah portion, the rabbis take as proof God speaks to peoples, right? Bilam, proof that God speaks to people around the world. And Eov, what do we put into the book of the Bible? The book of Job, Eov, who is of Eretz Utz. Eretz Utz is Edom. It's not Hebrew, not Israelite, but he's a God-fearing person. God talks with him. It pierced him out of the whirlwind, right? As a righteous person, and clearly not an Israelite. Huh? Edom, yeah, but they're pagans, right? They're not Israelites, they're pagans. Keep distance between the two. The Judeans didn't like the Edomites. You read what they say about them. They don't like them. So Eov, the great hero, is Edomite. It would seem the Eretz Utz is part of Edom. So what do we have a point? It's the sense that what has happened is that rather than encountering God as individuals, as is more or less the case, it is here a people that has encountered God. And that's the particular Jewish aspect, particular Jewish perspective. So in the Torah, we have more of a sense of who God is not than who God is. And it is interesting, Torah doesn't tell us to believe in God. Nowhere does it say you must believe in me. It says you got to listen to me, got to follow my directions. Believe, well, if you're listening to me and following, okay. Why? Because it's understood. I mean, you understood there's a God. My question is, what's the relationship to me? It's like this thing, I know there's a sun, there's a moon, I know there's a God. Don't give me a proof. I see this table. That's the thinking. That's the thinking. Now what's important is, what about it? I see a table. What about the table? I see a sun. What about the same thing? I understand there's a God. Now, what about it? What about it? So we now have introduction in the Torah to the idea of a God who creates the universe in an orderly fashion, right? It's the opening of Genesis. He establishes the universe and what exists in a systematic and non-chaotic order, which is very different than from the way creation is handled in all the other theories of evolution of the universe in the Babylonians, in the Egyptians, and the Greeks, et cetera, et cetera. Then, of course, we always have the other hand, like Jews, always the other hand, chapter 2. All right, God is a God who walks in the garden in the heat of the day. But what does he do? Why is he now walking in the garden? Because he senses human beings are in trouble, and he goes down, descends to see what has happened to the human being. So now something different. The universe is fine. I don't have a problem with the universe. I have a problem with the human being inside the universe. It's supposed to be my special creation. That is the particular biblical and Jewish perspective. So now, as a result, absent from God is the endowment of physical human characteristics. We use terms for imagery, for poetic imagery, but the physical, right? You should not have any statues, not any images, right? There may have been in earlier levels. There's some theory that if you go to the north, there's a sanctuary in Tel Dan, which is a very ancient sanctuary. It may have been a competition to Jerusalem. And there, what looks like a footrest. Nothing above it. Place where God would have had his presence on earth, and the footrest is to symbolize that presence, no image. Even in the north where they had the golden calf, they had in the sanctuary, there was no sense that this calf was the God. The calf was the throne of God. In the Canaanite image, God rides on the calf, where you have the image of Baal on the calf. Here there's the calf, no image. Even in the north, they have the sense. All right, in sanctuary in Jerusalem, there's a throne, 2 angels, nothing above. That's the ark. Again, so there's an absence of the physical characteristics. I say they certainly have been removed. We have references to it, but they're now made as metaphors. And there's also an absence of sexuality from God. In the ancient universe, everything is yin and yang, male and female, plus and minus, right? So the gods are male and female everywhere around the world, and they're always getting in troubles. And here, let's get rid of the troubles. Boom, one god, all right, so he's male, okay, because that's how men made him, right? But Later on, we add the feminine aspect in Jewish thinking to that image. But again, the idea not of physical sexual God. And there may have been in ancient Israel a consort. We see some references to it, but certainly not eventually acceptable in that thought. So God no longer has human endowments, but very much in reverse then, this very flawed and failed human being who's constantly involved in wars and rape and all the bad things on earth is now endowed with divine attributes. What is that? Wisdom, creativity, and the power to choose between good and evil. And those are attributes of God, and they're given to the human being. Modified sense, but there. And hence, the Garden of Eden is close to the human being because we have the ability to discern good from evil, and we have the ability to choose evil. So given that, we can no longer be in the Garden of Eden. Now we're in the real world, right? But it's still the human being in the Tzelem Elohim. So the rabbis have a beautiful statement in which there's a parade of Roman soldiers, and the soldiers are announcing, make way for the gods, make way for the gods. The rabbi looks at it and says, gee, that's funny. Says, with us, it's the opposite. Whenever human being walks down the street, there's a band of angels announcing, make way for the image of God. In other words, the human being now becomes encompassed with the idea that the human being now has something of God, godlike, to be respected in the same sense. Very similar. So now we have other ideas that the Bible is introducing to us, which is God is the source of justice. And that's reflected back on Abraham, right? The famous story, God is going to go down to Sodom, see what's happening. And he says, why do I need to go to talk to Abraham? Because he will teach his descendants tzedek u'mishpat. His job is to teach his descendants doing that which is righteous and just. And so I have to talk to him about what's happening in Sodom. And then Abraham rises up to the challenge and says, Hashofet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat, right? He's saying mishpat. Abraham's going to teach his children mishpat, justice. Abraham challenges God's justice. Well, obviously implicit in it is God knows what he's doing, but he lets Abraham look into it and observe it, right? Understand God is the God of justice. Shofet kol haaretz. Then another concept. God is the player in human history. So human history is not random. Human history is not chance. Human history is not up and down, up and down, up and down without any purpose, which is what the way the Greeks saw it. There's no history. Now, rather, the Greeks have a sense of history. So you've got a golden age, it goes down to a silver age, comes down to an iron age, then the brass age, the worst one. That's where we are. That's their view, all going downhill. Not so here. What does Joseph tell his brothers when they come to him? And they wanted to spare them. And he says, no, you meant bad. God meant it for good, to save many lives. Joseph understands this is an action of God in history. What looks bad is a working out of some kind of greater plan. And he doesn't even know, because he saves many lives talking about the Egyptians. He doesn't understand this, the Exodus is coming. All right? So Amos universalizes it. As much as Jews felt different, I said Amos universalizes it to all humanity. He says, Halo kivnei kushim atem li b'nei Yisrael. You are like the Ethiopians to me. They're the farthest, Ethiopians basically meant the farthest people that we know about as you go down south. Same peoples, right? Dear to me. Halo et Yisrael heleti. I brought you out of Egypt. I brought the Egyptians. I brought the Philistines from Kaftor. Philistines, I brought them from the Mediterranean seas. Kaftor is probably Crete. And then Aram Mekir. The Arameans, I brought them from Kir, which is further north. I brought them back, and there have been some wars. They've been exiled. I brought them back in. God is the actor of history, of all human history. So we Jews are different in the sense that we are very sensitive to it. We are aware of it, but all humanity is acting out some divine process. Later on, philosophers will talk about an evolution of human development, like Hegel and so on. Marx would turn it on his head and talk about economic development. But it's the same working out of this sense that there's some force that is ordering human history. Of course, philosophers have questions if that really is true. That's a whole different argument. But we also have here finally, then, what else are we coming into? The idea of a unity of God. Obviously, you all know the Shema, right? Lord our God is one. So that word one lends itself to many, many concepts. One word, many concepts, right? That's how it is with Jews. What? Echad can mean the soul alone. It is not to be identified with any other God. Maybe there are other little gods. This is the only God for us, alone. The sole one, not worshipped with any other God, not worshipped together with any other semi-God, demigod. Unique, right? Completely other, completely different from that which exists, any entity, power, force. The only God, in other words, that there are all the other gods that the nations around us have are myths. They are fabrications of humanity. And so in the prophets, you have this, the guy takes a piece of wood, he chops it, he cuts it into a shape, puts one half, makes it his idol, the other half he puts into the fire to keep himself warm, and then he bows down to the idol. From the same piece of wood, they just set to fire so he would stay warm, right? Making fun of the whole idea of paganity, in which divine elements are seen in physical objects. So, yeah. Good. So Maimonides says, yeah, actually, when God says, "I am the Lord your God," that's a command. Maimonides says, yeah, but it is, in the sense, it's never phrased as a direct command. It's an assumption. So if you assume that there's a God, you can't have another God. Right. So you can't have another God, I can tell you directly. Yeah. Maimonides goes that route because it's a philosopher. He says, yeah. You know. Right. But it's because it's presumed understood. It's presumed understood, like, that's it. You know it. Knowing it is, if you know it, you don't have to believe. Why do I say that? It's Buber would explain this way, that when we look at the way belief is used in Jewish sources and in Christian sources, Christian sources refer to the term pistis, and that's in New Testament. And that is absolute faith in something where you have no proof of any kind. And he says the word emunah, the same word as amen, is I rely on. And so it's a different mental state. That's it. That's the way to look at it. Different mental state. Yeah. They felt it. Yeah. It's intuited. Yeah, but it's intuited. That's different. It's intuited. They saw me, yeah. Of course, then they ran away as soon as they saw him, but that's yeah. That's because I don't like what God's telling me. That's different. Yeah. Ro'im et hakolot. They see the voices. They don't see any image. They see the thunder. They see... Yeah, we can't. Don't let us see, because nobody can see God and live. This idea of seeing God, you're only dead when you see God. That's it, right? No, we don't want to be there yet. But they ro'im et hakolot. It's very interesting. They see the voice. In other words, the command from God, it becomes visualized, but not the visual image. All right, very important, that distinction. So what else? Also, the idea about Erha, we separate ourselves from the concept in paganism, multiple forces, multiple values in the universe. We also distinguish ourselves in that from what is emerging towards the end of the biblical period, which is the very strong philosophy of Zoroastrianism, which is very widespread and is the religion of the Persian conquerors. And they're the very people who save us from exile and generally are very favorable towards Jews. And relationships are generally good. Once in a while they go sour, but generally better. So, but in that, the universe is a conflict between good and evil, light and dark, with the belief that good will prevail. So we want to be on the force of good, not the force of evil. But Isaiah rejects even that good will prevail. He rejects even that. He says, Yotzer or v'rechoshech, oseh shalom et ra. Creates the world And all, here, let me enlarge the screen a little bit. Yeah. Let me make that smaller. Yeah. He fashions light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates evil. Borei Ra. Ani Adonai Oseh Kol Ela. I do all this. There's all that goes on. The yin and the yang, the plus and the minus, the creation and destruction, all those are the outcome of God. So there's a God then who is above and beyond all the contradictions of existence, the underlying unity of all that exists. So when things contradict, they contradict to us, but it is an apparent contradiction, not a consequential contradiction, right? Another thing in Jewish thought, a God who is above and beyond all that exists and yet is immanent. It was directly felt, right? Transcendence. American had the early American philosophy of transcendentalism, which is a quasi-mystical sense, the God above and beyond all self. Some of the great poets were in that movement. And in Jewish thought, we have this transcendental, but at the same time immanent, a felt presence. So the rabbis give an example, right? Sorry, they take Isaiah, by the way, and they modify Isaiah. They get rid of who creates evil, makes peace, and creates all. That's in the morning benediction. So, where am I? Yeah. So let's go back in my thinking. So it's not only God who is created in the past tense, but as we say in the morning prayers, Mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit, one who renews the creation every day. So actively involved in the continuing action of creation, not the idea of deism where you have the master clockmaker who winds a clock and it goes on forever. The medieval philosophers, not Jewish, the Catholic Church, they had this idea, a very good one that sounds nice. Causa in esse, causa in fieri. God is the cause of existence, and God is the cause of the continuation of existence. Because just because you make something doesn't mean it keeps on working. Somebody has to grease the wheels. So this idea of a God who is beyond everything and yet presence is embedded in the prayers, in the structure of the prayer. Every time we say Baruch Atah in a blessing, it's a contradiction. Why do I say contradiction? We say Baruch Atah, I'm talking to God. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God. Hamotzi, the one who brings bread. Asher Kishem, the one who sanctified us. So we're shifting from personal to the distant. This back and forth shifting. We want to have this sense of both understandings, that which is distant and that which we're approaching. By the way, just another thought, unlike European languages, when in European languages you want to sense some of these very familiar, close, you have what's called tutoyer, tu in French and Spanish, du in German and Yiddish, right? Bible Hebrew doesn't have it, it has ata, just as modern English has only you, right? English went to the thou, but thou has a sense of distance because it was left over from earlier English. So we don't understand as thou is there because it means very personal, like a father, all right, very close. Martin Buber would play on this, and he had his theory of I, thou, which was translated as ich du, I, thou, and Hesch would expand it to we, thou. This is collective, but it's still this do, we're personal. So now we have to ask this thing, do we have a systematic theology? See, Maimonides will talk about systematic theology, but we don't, historically. When it came to action, we had a method of analysis and a way of ordering our collective behavior, right? Very systematic, able to do this. Can be debating and so on, but it's very structured, very analytic. When it comes to belief, the whole system is different. We relied on metaphors, literary phrases, poetic terms, free flow, free association of thought, much as in Freudian free association, you have a word and then you suddenly find another word somewhere else in the Bible and you connect the two and you come and use that as an excuse to come with all sorts of stories. That's how the faith mind works. So how do we come to belief? Right? How do we come to belief? Beautiful story. It's attributed to Abraham. Obviously it's later. Okay, obviously it's later. And it gives us a parable of a man who's walking from place to place, and then he sees a castle. aglow. A castle, a fortress aglow. Daluk means it's burning in flames. And he says, is it possible the castle lacks a person to look after it? And then the owner of the castle comes and he says, I am the master of the castle. It's not ownerless. So what happens with Abraham, they say, was similar. He says, is it possible this universe lacks someone to look after it? He sees the universe aflame. It's trouble everywhere. There's got to be somebody to look after it. And then God approaches him and says, I am the master of the universe. So when you look at the world, for its grandeur and for its problems, you say, somebody behind it. That's the perception. So as I say again, for the sages also, this is in the Bible, came out of a personal and collective expression. And now when we come to describing God, then we use physical images, we use verbal images, we don't use pictures so much, except you saw, Carmen, you saw the picture in the synagogue, because we borrow what's from our neighbors, it looks good, we borrow it. But we don't mean it. We add the word kiviyachol, as if it were. We could use this word, if it was for real, we could use this. Or where it says the blessing of the Amida, Ha'el HaGadol VaNorah, the God who's wonderful and amazing. And so the story is of a cantor who keeps on going on and on and on and on, all the wonderful things God does. And the rabbi shuts him down. He says, look, if Moses didn't use the words Ha'el HaGadol VaNorah, we wouldn't say it ourselves. He says, why? This is like a guy who comes into a palace loaded with treasures and he sees some pennies and he picks them up. He says, you don't understand. You can't express it. You can't express it. So we use a language kiviyachol, as if it were. And so the example is in Song of Songs. Pharaoh mounts a stallion in the Song of Songs, and it is the Holy One, as if it were, reveals himself on a stallion, right? Using the metaphor. He's not on a stallion. It's as if it were. And so this goes on in rabbinic stories. God is Shekhinah. God is a presence felt among the collective, the people. Shekhinah begalut. We're in exile. God's presence is in exile. We're suffering. God is suffering. Right? Very human phrases, very human terms of phrase. Another word used in the Bible, which is really much more philosophical, the word makom. The world is not makom, right? It is shu mekomo shel olam ve'en olamo mekomo. He is the space of the world, but the world is not his space, right? Place of the world. And it comes from Jacob, in the story of Jacob leaving, and it says, Vayifgav makom. He stumbles on a place. And the rabbis interpret, he says, he stumbled upon God. And there it says, also where he talks to Moses, there is space with me, in the makomiti, when he talks to him about the golden calf. Remind you, there's plenty of space inside of me. The world is inside. The universe is inside me. I am not inside the universe. Right? That's maybe as close to a philosophical description as the rabbinic midrash could do it. Greeks did a much better job of organized reason. Give credit to them, and some of them did influence Jewish thinking. In the first time that we came across the Greeks, by the time we came across the Greeks the second time through Islam, we were very open to the systematic thinking. So we had Philo of Alexandria applies Greek method of metaphors to the philosophical concepts of the Bible, and he influences Christianity much more than Jewish sources. But later, with the Islamic rise of Islamic civilization and their discovery of Greek thinking, we're very much into it. So you have a great leader, Rabbi Saadia Gaon, applies what's called Neoplatonism to the concept of the realm of Jewish thought. Neoplatonism, we have this idea of the out of God emanations of different philosophical entities that then are actually the functioning of the universe. And of course, the most controversial, we have somebody like Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, Rambam, who turns Aristotle into a Jewish thinker almost. And he writes this in his very cryptic Guide for the Perplexed. And he says in the Guide to the Perplexed, says, look, I'm going to be making all sorts of hints that only the very brilliant students will understand. It's intended for a few students. But then he also took the same kind of thinking and he put it into his Mishnah Torah, which is the guidebook that he designed for all Jews. And it opens up with the question of belief. And he starts out with the question in the Mishnah Torah, yeah, you have to believe in a God. That is Rambam who puts it. But when it comes to defining God, also Rambam goes and he says, look, we can only know negative attributes. We can only know what God is not. We can use words about God, but then we have to modify them and say, what we really mean is that it's not what we think it is. So if we say God is good, it cannot be in any sense that a human being can comprehend. So essentially, what we can do is whittle away at what God is not. We can never come to what God is. It's the negative attribute. Okay. And if anybody believes that God has attributes, that's like saying the Shema, but believing there are many gods. Right? This all one single entity. Okay. Some philosophical proofs, and I'll wrap it up, and then we'll go to singing. The idea of a first mover. You can't have an infinite chain of causes, although Rambam himself claims he could have proved it otherwise. So there must be a first unmoved mover to start all motion. And then go to the Christians. So they have some very neat philosophy. Saint Anselm, God is that than which a greater cannot be thought. And since I can think of existence, and to exist is greater than not existing, therefore God exists. It's very neat. It's a very nice thing. But philosophy, as I said, is the handmaiden of theology. It's nice company, can't be the real thing. So we go from philosophy, we also have Kabbalistic thought, when God is from an unfolding God, from Ein Sof, infinite, or Ein no thing, to Chochmah Bina Dat, the three top, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, and the Sfirot, the different elements whereby God's forces are manifest in the universe. It is basically God is a flow chart. You see a typical Kabbalistic imagery here with English translation for us. You see the Ein Sof above all, manifestation Keter Chochmah Bina, then the male and female. These are also the male and female sides, these Chesed and Gvura, Tiferet, Netzachot, Yesod. Yesod being the masculine entity and Malchut being the feminine entity. It is the connection with the masculine and feminine that brings God into communion with the world, Malchut. And as later Kabbalistic thought would have, it's the disjunction between the masculine and the feminine, the break between this world and the divine world that comes from Adam's fall, Adam's sin, and that is our job as Jews, is to bring that back together. All right, and then we come full round where he said God is no image. We now have the form of Adam Kadmon, the perfect primordial human being. Yeah, and we understand that in the Kabbalistic thought, in the human being is embodied an image of the elements of God. Right, a little bit of putting the image right back in where we took it out. So those are our thoughts about God. The way Jews approach God, the way Jews think of God. Okay, all right, fun time. I said we're going to try some singing, and I looked for some sites where I could have the words and the music along with the words. So I found this one. I'm going to put this on up for us. And this is a website, it's just interesting, called langeasy.com. And he goes to several cities around the world, and he talks about visiting and what you should see and so on, and then sample songs from each country. So he put a large selection of Israeli songs on the list. It's very nice. It's called langeasy.com, and then /Hebrew song for English / and you can see it comes in multiple languages. So if you want to see how it appears in different languages, depending what countries you want to visit, you can see it. And I pulled out two songs. I'm going to go with one. I'll start with one. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to go down here, which is Elohim Natan Lecha B'Matana. There's a great job of translating. The only one thing is that the guy who did the translation doesn't know there's a letter H in English. So instead of Elohim, he did Elohim, which I suspect maybe the translator, maybe a Russian speaker. Because I've seen this with Russian, Israelis who are from Russian families. They don't pronounce the, the hey disappears completely. So that's probably what I think. So what's also good is they use old videos. So old videos, I'm hoping will have a little bit less problem with copywriting. So I'm very concerned about that. So I'm going to enlarge it for you. This is Elohim Natan Lecha B'Matana. God gave you as a gift. God gave you as a beautiful words. Let me go through the English with you here first. Let's enlarge this screen. Okay, good. I got a touch screen. God gave, it's not gave you a person, it's God gave to you as a gift, something great, something wonderful. God gave you as a gift a life on earth, or living on the earth. He gave you the night and the day, love, hope, and dream, summer, winter, autumn, spring, a good soul to look around. That's neshama tova. Yeah, a good neshama tova, a good neshama, right? A good soul to look around. He gave you green fields, flowers and blooming trees, rivers, streams and seas, sky, moon, and stars. Then the chorus gave you feasts and Sabbaths, Israel, the father's lands, hands and head to fulfill dreams, gave you all the wonders, gave you such nice things to bring kids to this world. Listen to songs, see colors. Oh, so many are your deeds. Oh, how wonderful. How wonderful are your deeds, of God. And then, God, please give me just one more gift, small gift, but a wonderful one. God, please give me just one more gift, the peace on earth. So let's do this so we can get this. We're going to read so you get it. So remember, almost everywhere where it's there should be a hey, you may have to add it. So I'll just read it with you. Read it with you. Elohim natan lecha. So with the H is for the cha, right? Elohim natan lecha b'matana, davar gadol, davar nifla. Elohim natan lecha b'matana, et achayim al pnei ha'adama. And it continues, Natan lecha et halayla v'hayom, ahava tikva v'chalom, kayetz chorev stav aviv, neshama tova lehabit saviv. Natan lecha hasadot yerukim, prachim ve'etzim melavlevim, naharot v'nechalim v'yamim, shamayim yareach kochavim. נתן לך חגים ושבתות, את ישראל, ארץ האבות, ידיים וראש להגשים חלומות, נתן לך את כל הנפלאות, נתן לך הדברים כל כך יפים, להביא לעולם ילדים, להאזין לשירים, לראות צבעים, ומה רבו מעשיך האלוהים. And the chorus, אלוהים אותן לי רק עוד מתנה, מתנה קטנה אך נפלאה, אם תן לי רק עוד מתנה, את השלום על פני האדמה. So it goes something like this, and then we'll play it and we'll sing along. אלוהים נתן לך במתנה, דבר גדול, דבר נפלא, נתן לך במתנה, לחיים על פני האדמה. So now, I'm going to put it on, and we'll try to sing it. And hold on, and then I'm going to put it on. Start. La, 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 la,
החיים על פני האדמה. נתן לך את הלילה והיום, אהבה, תקווה וחלום, קיץ, חורף, סתיו, אביב, נשמה טובה להביט סביב. נתן לך שדות ירוקים, פרחים ועצים ולבלבים, נהרות, נחלים וימים, שמיים, ירח, כוכבים.
אלוהים נתן לך במתנה דבר גדול, דבר נפלא. אלוהים נתן שבתות, את ישראל ארץ האבות, ידיים מראש להגשים חלומות, נתן לך את כל הנפלאות, נתן לך דברים כל כך יפים, להביא לעולם ילדים, להאזין לשירים, לראות צבעים, מה רבו מעשיך אלוהים.
את החיים על פני האדמה. אלוהים, תן לי רק עוד מתנה, מתנה קטנה אך נפלאה. אלוהים, תן לי רק עוד מתנה, את השלום על פני האדמה.
The group is the Burgonim. Burganim. Oh, it's from a TV series. Okay, that particular group. There's been many variations. The songwriter Ishai Levi. Yeah. This is relatively newer. What do I mean relatively newer? It's probably been around about 20 years. All right. So I'm looking at this, in this particular site, when the guy was putting it together, it's a lot of the songs that were popular about 10, 20 years ago, but some of them are pretty well known. I have another one that I'm going to try next week, a little bit more complicated, but it's also very beautiful, the wording. Yeah. It's the old time. I've got to find, I've got them. There are other sources I can pull up. What they used to call as Jewish agency songs. The songs that they would teach all the new immigrants when they came in, run by the Jewish Shirei Sochnut. Yeah, okay. All right, we'll do some of these. Yeah. As I said, it was convenient because he had it in the transliteration with the music together. I have some other sources. What happens is they will give you the music, but only like the first 30 seconds of the clip. It's a share on that. It's huh? Yeah, because they don't want to get into recording problems and so on. So they give you the first 30 seconds. So I can lead them. It's just that I don't do it as nicely as, they were very nice singers. I can't do it with all the music. Anyway, my throat is good. So now, okay, good. So I come up with a different one each time. And then as we come to, so after Tisha B'Av is the 15th of Av, so I'm going to try to see if we can do a musical Shabbat. So Tisha B'Av is they're coming up like the 7th or 8th of August. And at that time, we can do, I don't know if any of you would you want to come back here for Saturday night? It's like 2 weeks from tonight. Can we do it? What do you think, Carmen? Would it be doable? Doable. What would we need? It's a Saturday night, so I just know if people will come out. Then I'm going to do anything. So maybe we'll do here. Can we get, I've got the screens here. So we'll do the, what I've done in the past, reading of Erha, Lamentations. So it would be like the second Saturday of August, I think. Yeah, I think so. And then, Yeah, I'll notify people. And then the Saturday after that, we'll do the musical singing because it is associated with the 15th of Elul, custom of a love day, matchmaking day. So can come up with poetry songs. That's tomorrow. Yeah, 17th of Thomas. Yeah. Okay, so again, very Orthodox Jews start from the morning. It's not a full 24-hour fast. It's a sunrise to sunset fast. So they'll eat in the evening, sunrise to sunset. It's part of the 3 weeks period. In 3 weeks, they would count 3. Between the periods of difficulties, and it indicates the start of the final siege of Jerusalem by the Babylonians, culminating 3 weeks later with the actual destruction of the temple, which is marked in the 9th of Ab. So it is observed more in the breach than in the fulfillment, or in different periods. Jews observed it more or less, some less. Since the rise of state of Israel, many said that with the rise of state of Israel, we should move out of our mourning phase and into a different phase of Judaism and focus Tisha B'Av, but not focus on the other 3 fasts. It's the Tzom Gedalia, it's the Asar B'Tevet, right? So it's Tzom Gedalia, the day after Rosh Hashanah, the day in which the Gedalia, the last governor of Israel, of ancient Judea, was assassinated, which led to the battle, the final battle. And then the Asar B'Tevet, where I think it's the walls outside the city were breached, and then Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, the walls in the temple building were breached. Yeah. So it'd be somewhere around 8:30, something like that. Right? If we can do it, yeah, let's do it then. Okay. And we'll notify people. And I'll do what I've had done before with some dramatic readings, some dramatic clips and readings from Erha. The same setup. Yeah, the same setup we always have. Yeah. We'll use these as the screen. Yeah, it's easier. This we don't need to worry about it. I don't think you need it. It's easier from this, no? Because you have 2 screens, everybody can see. From one of the previous. Let's see what we have. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So with that, let's wrap up with Adon Olam, and we'll sing together. And again, sing along. Let's do the Adon Olam where I sing a line and you sing a line. Adon Olam, Adon Olam. Right. So we get in a music version. All together. Join in with me. Around. It's a little different from around. It's a back and forth. So page 514. All together. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, B'chefza Kol, Azai Melech Shema Nikra, Adon Olam, V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, V'hu Haya, V'hu Hove, V'hu Yeh B'tifara Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Adon. Asher Molach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Eit Nasa, B'chefza Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Echad, Ben Sheni, Laham Shilo, Lahachbira, Adon Olam, Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit, Velo Ha'oz V'Hamisa, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, Nisachakol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, Adon Olam, V'hu Eli, V'chai Goali, V'tzor Chevli B'yetzara Adon Olam, V'hu Nisi, Umanosli, Menat Kasi B'yomekra Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, Mecheftzakon azay melech shemonika adon olam biyado avkid ruchi biyeti sham v'yayira adon olam biyimeruchi geviyati Adonai live eloira adon olam asher malach beterem kol yitzir nivra leit nasa bechefza kol azay melech shemonika adon olam. Shabbat shalom. I'm going to also add this. I'm putting up my mask. We may be required to start masking, so we'll play safe rather than sorry over the next few weeks till we figure out what this variant of the variant of the variant of the variant. Now they're going to BA 25.46, something like that. Dot. We're in BA4, BA5. Now it's a BA 2.5. So, yeah. Just have the mask. Yeah, till we are out of the woods with this. We'll play it safe, especially because we've got got older people, we've got people with health issues, so we want to be safe for everybody. Shabbat shalom to all of you. Shabbat shalom.